Back in the 1990s, when I founded and ran Judicial Watch for 10 years, I uncovered what became the Chinagate scandal. Monies going from communist China into the campaign accounts of Bill Clinton. I actually deposed John Wang, a suspected Chinese spy in the Commerce Department. The case became large. It was bigger than Watergate in many ways. Many people actually said that. It was killed by both Democrats and Republicans because they both were taking money from communist China. Typical, right? But one of the things that the Democrats immediately did was to accuse me and the Republicans, and I didn't bring the case on behalf of the Republican Party, of being racist against the Chinese. I made a special point of saying to the contrary. In fact, I had many clients from Taiwan who were Chinese. I respect the Chinese people. I admire their culture. I made that point. It wasn't about the Chinese people. It was about the communist government of China and Bill Clinton taking illegal money as campaign contributions. Fast forward to COVID-19. When I brought a lawsuit in Dallas, Texas, a class action for Buzz Photo for all the damage that the communist Chinese have done in that lab from Wuhan, China. And we're culpable as well, the United States, because we gave that Wuhan lab the seeds, the SARS virus of COVID-19. And it was reasonably foreseeable that that military lab in Wuhan, a military lab, as I just said, would try to create a bioweapon, which would be not immune from suit. Sovereign immunity would not apply to that lab and to the Chinese government. I made it clear that this was not a case against the Chinese people. This was a case against the communist Chinese regime. And frankly, the United States is liable too. They may wind up being part of this case. When I say the United States, not the people of the United States, but the Obama-Biden regime that gave those seeds to Wuhan with a $2.8 million grant, which explains why we've never learned. In turn, we know what happened in doubt. It's not in doubt. But the government has never admitted that there was American complicity, much more that the Chinese were creating a bioweapon at Wuhan, or that, in fact, it emanated from that lab, COVID-19, which now has killed over 10 million people. Let's talk about even something further, and that is the effort by Fox News in particular to exploit the fact that Chinese people are coming across the border, the southern border. This is not necessarily agents of the communist Chinese regime. Many of them, most likely, are simple Chinese people that want to flee an oppressive communist regime that are coming across that border. They're coming into Tijuana. They obviously have some money. They wanted freedom for themselves, and they most likely, many of them were politically persecuted by this communist regime, the same way the Cubans have been politically persecuted. The United States used to have a policy, wet foot, dry foot. It was eliminated by Obama, reinstated by Trump. And frankly, as of this date, I'm not sure whether it's in effect or not, but it doesn't matter because the Cubans that made their way to the shores of Miami in particular were given political asylum. They came here, technically speaking, without getting clearance from the Immigration and Naturalization Service. They would have been illegal, but they were given asylum because they were fleeing an oppressive communist regime. So the bottom line is this: I don't want people to exploit the fact that Chinese people may legitimately be leaving China for political persecution and claiming asylum because they were persecuted by a very oppressive communist regime. And I don't want that to spill over to the Chinese people, who are good people with a great and rich culture. And I don't want to see racism or exploitation coming out of conservatives any more than any other group. And that goes for Fox News that exploits this for clicks and ratings. So let it be said that Larry Klayman is a proponent of people fleeing a communist regime and being granted asylum if they're being politically persecuted. And by definition, anyone who flees that regime in China, who is not an agent of the Chinese government, is in fact entitled to asylum in this country, just like the Cuban people, who I also love, were entitled to that asylum and that grant of being able to enter this country. That's my message for today. Do not take out what happened in the last few years with regard to COVID-19, or for that matter, the illegal immigration with people running across the border with no basis to claim asylum against the Chinese people. I'll be back tomorrow with another special podcast. Until then, remember, the Father and Son will only help us if we help ourselves. Go to freedomwatchusa.org. We stand for rights and equal rights for all people, and we will stand there in the stead for the Chinese people as well. God bless you. God bless America. God save America. Thank you for listening to me. Remember, the Father and Son will only help us if we help ourselves.